Crazy Dude Full, I just watched your video. Some problems I have with evolution, and dude, this is not sarcastic, but bravo! Your best video ever. And you know why I'm saying this? Because you have questions. You didn't start off asserting that this it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. You are actually asking questions. And that freaking rocks. It's not questioning your faith or anything like that. In fact, there's a lot of people who are Christian and Muslim and Hindu and so on and so on that actually do believe in the evidence of evolution, or believe the evidence they have seen for evolution. Um, Here's something you've got to consider. Okay? Like when you were saying, why isn't there only human? Well, a big thing that's happening with when we're talking about things with evolution and stuff is it's all about a species' ability to adapt to its ever-changing environment. That's where they come with the survival of the fittest. The ones that are able to move into something that allows them to adapt to their environment better is more likely to survive longer to allow their genes to continue on. Now, their children, traits that they have gotten from their parents, as well as some very slight, what might seem or insignificant, may actually move into something that would help them on, such as things like having the right color that goes with the environment. In one case, it may have just been a fluke type of mutation that actually ended up helping that animal out. And all those animals that one's going to have as offspring are going to that have inherited that trait are going to live longer because they were able to avoid predators much better, so they're going to be able to reproduce further. Now, to go into more of the question about why isn't there more humans and stuff like that, one of the things that you've got to realize that's separating us from all the other animals is ours wasn't just about a physical type of a thing. One of our things that really helped us along is, since we were not the fast ones, we don't run as fast as, well, pretty much every animal. Um, our strength isn't there. Our We don't swim like them. We started building and using tools, which started to move into something that was a bit more complicated mentally. So in our evolution, our brains got bigger. We grew the ability to think. We got smarter because of creating more complicated tools. We'd create a more complicated tool. We'd see a problem, then we would create a more complicated tool through trial and error to try to fix those. So we kind of forced ourselves to pull in a stronger understanding of the environment and the world around us. Now, something else that's very interesting about the human species is we are the only ones, well, to my knowledge, that for the most part, I mean, there are some variations, I'll explain that in a minute, that we don't really adapt to our environment so much. We are a species that tries to adapt the environment to suit us. So that's another area where we ended up finally differing because of the advancement of our mental capacity as well as problem solving and making tools. But we do it on a very dramatic level when it comes to changing the environment to suit us. Other ones would be like termites and stuff like that, with big termite mounds that change everything around it to suit their needs. Not only birds building nests, but not nearly as heavy duty as we. A quick little thing when we're talking about things like speciation as well as microevolution versus macroevolution. It's this simple. Now, granted, keep in mind that for this to as this happens, the small ones are happening pretty close together for the macro or micro type of evolution. Subtle, very small, some would see as almost insignificant changes, over a very short period of time may not seem like much, but when we're talking about a time span, since the environment changes as well, for a species to progress, they change with it, with the small ones, which end up being, if you look at the bigger picture, I'm really sorry. There's a whole bunch of information I want to fit into this, and there's only so much time. Okay. If in, we'll just play with the time scale. It's going to be way off, but we'll just play with it. Let's say 10 things happen to you in 1 year, whatever they are. You learn to play the piano, you learn to play the flute, you learned a whole bunch of different things. Now, if every year you learn how to do 10 really slick new things, those 10 really slick new things each year are not a whole bunch for, a lot of people. Yeah, that's wonderful. But when we're talking about through your entire lifetime, you've acquired a whole bunch. But now when we're talking about over the lifetime of a species, where it's just acquired a little bit from generation to generation, that doesn't seem like much. I mean, if we go back 4 generations, 8 generations. But when we look at really what all that species has acquired over a stretch of millions of years, it acquires a lot. Another thing else to consider is when you're having like a species that splits off. This guy, these guys here, they go to California. These guys here, they go to New York. They just start to migrate in that. Well, the species that, now keep in mind, this has to do with being able to adapt to one's environment. Otherwise, they're just wiped out. So the ones that are adapting well, again, from what might seem as an insignificant change, the ones that adapt well over the time are going to do really well. So those ones that went out to California, they may have now been able to, they do well against very warm climates and stuff like that, as where this species of animals that, when they split off in Texas and they now that species, after a huge amount of time, that is now living in New York, they've adapted so well, they had to adapt that type of environment. They're able to withstand the cold better. Those ones that part of its behavior that they were starting to eat more and, get more fat and stuff like that. And they end up with really being able to do much better in there. Now, what's really interesting is after that split off in like Texas, and then we come back to them and do like a little family reunion and bring them all back to their Texas roots, all 3 species will now be completely different after, several million years. You'll be able to trace them back to that original group, but they're going to be different. Now, that species in Texas will not have changed nearly as much from the 2 others that would have branched off from. I hope that helps to explain it somewhat. If not, there's other things that we can show you. But that's just kind of a quick idea as to what it is. Environmental as well as behavior. Those are 2 really big key aspects when we're talking about the evolution of people as well as the evolution of animals. With us, our behavior as well as and what have you, that had to do with us having to adapt by using tools. The other animals didn't have to go through those kinds of stresses. That's why you don't see the planet infested, so to speak, with humanoid type variety of species. Anyway, hope that explains something, and it's good you asked questions. Proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. Somehow Magic, I'll talk to you later.